From Square 2, this is What's Wrong with Revenue. I'm Mike Lieberman, CEO at Square 2, and along with my longtime friend Eric Kalis and co-founder at Square 2 and six-time entrepreneur, Eric and I will answer the questions CEOs have every single day: what's wrong with revenue? You can be part of the live cast show where we'll answer your questions every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, or catch the show on demand on YouTube and on all your favorite podcast networks. Also, check out all our audio and video content on Square 2 Plus at the square2marketing.com website. Enjoy the show. Hey everybody, welcome to What's Wrong with Revenue. I'm Mike Lieberman, CEO here at Square 2. Appreciate everybody joining us today. Eric and I are here with Greg Makish, the CMO at PTO Exchange. I'll let Greg introduce himself in a minute, but Greg, thanks for joining us. Eric, thanks for joining us. I had a funny story before I do my little preamble. So Greg and I were talking offline about how to pronounce his last name. And Eric, did I ever tell you that I wanted to have a like a stage name for my professional career? Do we ever talk about this?
I'm not sure. Well, jog my memory, please.
Right. So I always felt like a cool name would be Michael Brash. And I always felt like I wanted that to be my like professional name. But when we got started, you would never, ever, ever think about not using your real name. However, today, if I was like Sam or Jonathan's age, well, Jonathan kind of changed his first name, right? But if you're getting started in business today, you literally could come up with a professional name and build your own professional character, LinkedIn and email and everything, and no one would ever know your real name. So I wish maybe I had a chance to redo that. If I had any regrets, it would be to come up with like a cooler name to use professionally.
Now that you said that, I kind of remember that at 2 a.m. at the bar one night. Explain.
I might have mentioned it. All right, cool.
Who said Lieberman wasn't cool?
Lieberman, come on. I could do better. I mean, my kids seem to like it, but I'm I don't know. And Eric, I mean, he's got issues with his name for sure.
Yeah, it's K-less, like pay less shoes. Once I say that, everybody remembers.
Right. No, I get it. I think the flip side of what you were just describing, Mike, is, while that's possible today, there's this value, I think, on authenticity and realness and real people.
Oh, well, you're right. You're right. So. That's a very good point. And I would get dinged for that if someone found out about it, for sure. You're absolutely right. Awesome. So sorry about that, folks. Just a little side note to get us started here. So thanks for joining us. Again, you can check out the show on YouTube. All of What's Wrong with Revenue is posted to YouTube as usually the next day. You can check out all our episodes on our YouTube channel, square2marketing.com. You can go to our website at the bottom. There's a link, What's Wrong with Revenue. You can check out all the shows. You can subscribe to the show. You can submit questions, and we'll handle some questions today from people who have submitted them. Also, all of our shows are posted to your favorite podcast platform. So if you're into podcasts, check it out on Apple, iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, and all the other podcast platforms. And as we've been talking about recently, Square 2 has a new streaming service. It's free to everybody called Square 2 Plus. All of the What's Wrong with Revenue episodes are now available on Square 2 Plus. There's a special What's Wrong with Revenue channel. There's also channels for CMOs, CROs, sales leaders. There's a technology channel. It's a really cool idea. Go check it out. square2marketing.com/square, the number 2, the word plus, and you'll get a cool Netflix-oriented experience where you can check out all of our audio and video content. So today, Eric and Greg, we're going to be talking about creating advocates for your business. So Greg, thanks for being a guest. I really appreciate it. You and I have kind of known each other electronically for the past couple of years. We've kind of talked back and forth and shared some experiences, and I appreciate you coming on the show. What Eric and I try to do is answer the question, what's wrong with revenue? And we try to unpack one particular issue that might be preventing companies from growing revenue. And today we're going to be talking about creating advocates. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about PTO Exchange, because it seems like a cool concept and we like to learn a little bit about it.
Sure.
But what we want to cover today is we really want to talk about how even companies that have great products and great services, if they're not leveraging their clients and their customers to tell their story for them, they're really not creating advocates. And you really need your customers to be advocates for you in the business, especially today. And Greg, I appreciate your comment about authenticity. Look, the three of us are marketers, and everyone knows our prospects don't really believe us. They know that our mission in life is to trick them to buying our services, the really good marketing and really good sales. So where do they go? They turn to our customers. They really want to hear from them directly. And today there are so many ways for them to hear directly from our customers through online reviews and video testimonials and all kinds of tools to activate, as Eric and I like to say, activate your customer base to help tell your story. So that's really what we're going to talk about today. I want to talk a little bit about how to do that activation and where you need to try to get your customers to tell your story, how you might be able to incent them without it looking like you're buying their advocacy, because again, that's not super authentic, right? And even how to systematize this for your company. And then we do handle questions here. So we have some questions from people who watch the show, listen to the show, and we'll try to cover those today too, all in about 60 minutes. So Greg, again, thanks for joining us. Why don't I let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and what PTO Exchange does? Again, it sounds like a cool concept. Introduce Eric and me and the audience here to it, and then we'll dive right in.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. And this is a great topic. So I'm looking to share some perspectives as well as learn as much as I can, because I think that you can continue to learn on this stuff, especially in the B2B spaces, which is where I live. So PTO Exchange is a relatively new company. We still consider ourselves a startup. We launched a couple of years ago with the beta version of our product, but we're basically the first benefits platform that allows employees to convert the value of their unused vacation, PTO, paid time off, into other causes and needs or priorities. So things like they can convert some unused vacation into retirement contributions or student loan repayments, or even an emergency cash fund that the employer would allow, or just straight out cash that's added to their weekly paycheck. Donations or discounted travel, those sorts of things are possible. And the whole notion here is we're big advocates of the value of paid time off and the value of vacation and how it helps employees and workers recharge and balance their work-life balance. But the sober facts are that in general, the average employee leaves about a week of vacation on the books each year that just doesn't take it. So if they get 3 weeks, they may take 2. If they get 4 weeks, they may take 3. This is across the entire spectrum of the U.S. economy, and both public and private sector. Actually, public sector is even more extreme than that. So they're building up a lot more unused than even the private sector. And our thought was, this is earned compensation. This is part of a worker's their package of how they're compensated, and why not provide them more options and flexibility for converting the value of that compensation into things that may be just a little bit higher priority for them at their stage in life, whether that's contributing to their college fund or retirement or what have you. So we're excited. We've got you had a tremendous growth here in 2021. We had on top of a very strong year in 2020 as well. So we're slowly but surely getting the story out, and we feel that what we're hearing from our customers is that, especially now, this is one of those things that is a differentiator that helps them especially retain staff, which is super important, especially in certain categories and industries like healthcare. What else can we do to support our employees, to increase employee engagement, to increase employee satisfaction, to enhance loyalty and enhance the stickiness and retention? So we're starting to really get some interesting data around that. We have quite a few anecdotal stories on that. So that's all good, and we're really trying to solve a couple of things. We want to solve for the employee and enable more options for those folks and the employers to, to do what they can to retain staff in these tough times.
It's a really cool idea. So let me make sure I understand it. So if I have a week of time off and I'm not going to use it, I give it to PTO Exchange and someone else buys it for some currency. How do I get compensated if I have an extra week of time off?
Great question. Not quite like you just described it. It's basically a software platform. You would either log in through your HR portal through a single sign-on, for example, or just go straight to our website and log in with your corporate email and a password that's been assigned to you or you change. And then you get this little dashboard and it says Mike L has 150 hours of PTO, and the company that he works for, Square Two, says of those 150 hours of paid time off that's in his bank right now, we would like him to retain a little bit for his own personal mental health and such. So he can exchange up to, let's say, 100 hours of that 150. And then you just go through and you click on a tile and then it's like, okay, I've got 100 hours I can potentially convert. Here's 8 hours into my 401k, boom, boom. And then you get all the confirmation stuff. And then it gets reflected on your pay stub. So you
that's
see
pretty
those
cool
contributions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could also decide, I like what you said about stage of life. If I'm trying to sock away for retirement at age 56, I might lean into that, work a little harder, not take my vacation. If I'm young and I want to explore the world, I might take all of it and not cash it in for anything. If I'm feeling that I need a tax deduction, I could take 1 week of my pay, donate it to the charity of the choice of my employer, and get a tax benefit for that, if that's my situation.
Absolutely, Eric. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. And we're finding that that's sort of is the way it's netting out. So younger people are using things around like student loan repayment more than retirement contributions and what have you. Interesting that you said travel. Our platform also is able to accommodate discounted travel as well. So if you want to go and book something, then you can. We have a deal with Priceline that gets you 15 to 30% below their published rates on hotels and airfare and car rentals. So the whole notion around that was sometimes people have the time to take a vacation, but maybe they couldn't then just afford it with their family, family of 4 or 5. So we wanted to provide that option as well, and that seems to be getting a lot of traction.
So because you're disrupting things, I assume it takes a lot of content in your marketing to describe that to the HR managers or leadership teams that you're trying to convince that this is a positive thing that they should implement. Exactly. And that's really been our main challenge, I think, for the last 2 years, is that we essentially created this category from nothing in late 2018, and now we're several years on. And it's just starting to begin to resonate, and it takes a while to sort of get that flywheel going and to get and to sort of build the communication channels for the megaphone. But we've been trying to be both strategic and tactical as a startup, using what we can, through the channels. But and we'll talk about that more, I'm sure during this. I'm sure that the great resignation has been a little wind in your sails, because employers are worried about losing people. They're looking for new tools in order to retain them. Yeah, it's been a real interesting 2 years. First of all, it started with how are employers going to deal with potentially people getting, many of their staff getting sick or having to take some time off for themselves or to care for a family member or a loved one. So we had this notion around PTO sharing that seemed to get a lot of attention in 2020, for example. That's this whole idea around, within a company itself, I can donate 8 hours of my time if I've got some extra into what's called a pool. And then this pool then sits and grows and grows and grows until it's got, and then individuals within the company can then apply to say, hey, I'm out. I need another week. I'm going to apply to the pool. And then there's criteria that are set up by the employer. And we had a lot of interest in that in 2020. That kind of morphed into, all right, a lot of people didn't take PTO during 2020 because of travel limitations and restrictions. So people just stayed.
So they get it. So the bank grew by 30 to 40% is based on some research that we've seen. So now employers are looking to proactively kind of try to work that balance down, because it is a liability on their balance sheet. And then, as you said, Eric, lately, certainly from mid 2021, even through today, it's been the Great Resignation, for sure.
Really interesting story. Cool. Let's try to apply that to our topic today. So, Eric, I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about the importance of the last stage in the cyclonic buyer journey and how that is relevant to this idea of getting your customers and clients to basically be advocates for you.
Absolutely. And I believe you mean the 7th of the 8 stages decision, right?
Well, aren't there 8? Isn't delivery? Yeah. I'm actually talking about delivery, the 8th stage.
Oh, for referrals and stuff like that.
Correct.
Oh, absolutely. Correct. Okay. So I'm sorry, I misunderstood. So yeah, a lot of clients come to us and they're like, hey, we need more leads. And we're like, okay, tell us what you do now to generate revenue. And typically they're forgetting about activating their customer base to either buy more or be advocates for other folks that might enjoy the same product or service. So I think the conversation always starts with, do I have something of interest to share? If I'm a customer of the store and I bought an apple and the apple had a big dent in it and the cashier was rude, I literally have no motivation to be an advocate for that store. But if the experience that I had with that organization was remarkable, I'm in a position to be an ambassador. The challenge is that people don't realize, business folks don't realize the power of that. By getting a customer base activated and basically tooting your horn to the rest of the world, those are the best kinds of leads we can get. They are free and they come with a baked-in testimonial. Call Greg, he's the man. That doesn't cost anything to anybody. So it all starts also with the understanding that the experience has to be great. You know, lots of times we talk to prospective clients and they say, well, we need help with our branding. And I always say, well, what does branding mean to you? Well, our logo, our brochure, our website. And it's actually not true in 2022. The brand is more typically the experience that people have with your company. And that enables people to feel what's going on in your company, positive or negative, and then make a decision whether they are an advocate or not. Sometimes I get a little frustrated because I hear stories about people that have bad experiences with businesses. And those experiences could so easily be turned into positive ones if the cognizance of the leadership team was like, what are we going to do to activate this group of people? So it all starts with having something interesting to say about a great experience. That's definitely step number 1. Step number 2 is, very simply, now that I have a positive group of people that are more than willing to tell my story, I have to ask them, I have to remind them, I have to give them tools in order to do that. And that's where the marketing advocacy thrust comes in, is that we have actually a strategy about activating those folks and getting them to sing our songs on our behalf.
Yeah, that was excellent. Thank you. And I there are the sad part about this whole topic is when people do have negative experiences, they're much more likely to tell people about it than when they have positive experiences, which is why you really need to programmatically think about this. So I'll give you a practical example. And then Greg, I'm going to ask you to talk about maybe how PTO tries to handle advocacy. Mm-hmm. So at Square 2, it's very important to us how our clients feel about their experience with us. And we tried for many, many years to make this into a system and make it easy to implement and give our clients a lot of opportunities to provide feedback to us. And we really used almost every tool in the toolkit: automated surveys, phone calls, net promoter score, really trying to get data and give our clients a lot of opportunities to tell us how we're doing. And eventually, what helped us crack the code around it was making it more personal. Now, we're not a software company, so we don't have thousands of clients or even hundreds of clients that we're trying to stay connected to on a regular basis. But we do have, 20 to 30, sometimes maybe 40 clients that we're trying to get feedback on. And what really turned the tide for us was making it a more personal experience and putting someone in charge of it and making it their responsibility. So the way we systematically handle advocacy at Square 2 is when we start with a new client, one of our executives, it's actually our creative director, tells our clients that she's also responsible for advocacy, and she's going to be checking in on them and literally initiates a conversation to personalize and customize that advocacy sequence, frequency. We do a lot of short, high intensive engagements here. So in those scenarios, you might be talking to them once a week because that engagement could be over in 4 to 6 weeks. And so a weekly touch base is more important. If it's a more traditional ongoing client, you might be talking to them once a month or once a quarter, depending on how frequently they want to talk to us and in what format. Is email how they want to interact with us? Do they want to have a phone call? Do they want to fill out a survey? How frequently do they want to get the survey? So they will basically tell us at the very beginning of the kickoff meeting, I'd like to talk to you once a week. I'd like it to be email, or I'd like to talk to you on the phone. Let's set up that meeting now. So there's, it's on our schedules, or, oh, just check in with me and we'll find a time to talk. So it's very personalized, very customized, and it's actually been the best thing we've ever done around this particular challenge. And what she does after she has those conversations, if they go well, is she's now trying to get them to help tell our story. So there are a few online platforms that we like to get reviews posted. If she has a good conversation with a client, she'll say, could you please write us a review? I'm going to send you some instructions to make it easy. We like to collect them here. We like to collect them there. This other place would be an option for you too. Like the more, the merrier, but we know it's a big part of your, I don't want to waste your time. So whatever you can do, we appreciate it. So she actually is very proactive about asking them to write reviews for us, because these online reviews are very important in our industry and probably many of yours who are listening too. Like I said earlier, people want to go and read those third-party reviews. That's really who they trust. They trust us a lot less than they do those reviews, because those people are mostly actually, they feel like those are honest and authentic reviews of our own performance. So that's how we've decided to kind of crack this code. And it's worked really well for us. We've been doing this for our past 2 years, or maybe even a little longer than that. But it's finally how we were able to get regular feedback from our clients, good, constructive criticism where it's necessary. That helps us be better, right? Everybody's trying to be better. And then activating those people to write reviews and also do video testimonials. We do almost steady stream of client video testimonials too. So when they have a good experience with us, we ask them, would you be willing to do a video? We explain our remote video program to them, how easy it is for them to just use an iPhone and shoot a little client testimonial video for us. So it's been a really good way for us to collect this content, share this content, and activate our customers. So if any of you are interested in talking about that a little bit more, you can email me at mike@squared2marketing.com. I'm happy to share some more details about what we do. Greg, what do you guys do at PTO Exchange for advocacy?
Well, thanks for that review and what you guys are doing, because I have great respect for you guys as marketers, and also how you market, your services in Square too. So that's super helpful. And I will call you about the video. So I guess I think that's
Sounds
important.
Good. Sounds good.
Our situation, it's again, this is interesting, Mike and Eric. It depends really on the category and the stage of the company and all these things. So here's what I mean. For PTO Exchange in particular, we have found that that the category was so new that people weren't, our target customers were not really hanging out on G2 or Capterra,
Trustpilot, any of those places, right.
It just weren't yet. So we tried a couple posts there. We got a couple of advocacy positive reviews there, and it was just sort of it's just really a small noise in the forest. It just wasn't really making any impact. We have found that, and then a secondary challenge for us as a B2B company is that. Actually, this is kind of in two parts. So part number one is our main customers, which are generally within the human resources or finance departments at these companies. They don't always have permission to publicly talk about which vendors they're working with for whatever corporate policy and communications policies that they have set up. So that can be a little bit of a hurdle, and I'm going to share with you some thoughts about how we're trying to deal with that. And then the second piece is the is this our ultimate customer are employees. So they're employees within these employers. The employers are our customers, but the employees are the ones that actually use the software, use the platform, get the benefit, get the value. So we've kind of had to come at it two ways. The first way is like I came at the traditional way, which is, okay, let's work with my advocate, the director or the VP of marketing or the CHRO, and try to get some testimonials from them. And we did, got some nice quotes and everything. But now we're really kind of diving into the second piece, which is we're getting permission to send surveys to the employees themselves who have used the system. One, we want to see what the awareness is of this benefit, and then also build the awareness. And then it's a quick survey, but it includes things like NPS.
Yeah.
If people have done, and what we want to do is then see if we can get permission to dive deeper as appropriate with each of those individual users or use cases. And possibly, again, sort of this would be maybe Mike or Eric speaking for themselves as opposed to the company on their particular experience using this benefit.
Is that less restrictive? I mean, if I'm an employee, am I allowed to talk about my experience with PTO Exchange as opposed to the VP of HR? We're kind
of in this gray area. We're trying to figure that out exactly. But ultimately what we'd like to do is get them to to post something positive on Glassdoor for their own company, about maybe a positive experience that they've had there, and then or things like LinkedIn. I tell you what we have been able to do, given sort of that situation where sometimes it's a little bit more a little less open than we like, and who you're working with. We've been able to get permission to use some of our customers and their testimonials in sales materials, PowerPoints, but they're just not widely publicly available.
Got it.
They're available for references, and we're leaning in more and more to folks who have agreed to be references for us. Before it was the old traditional way. Let me connect you with our prospect who's at this stage in the cycle, and then of course 2-3 weeks go by, and it's just adds time. So now we're leaning into video on for those particular reference calls, and if they can answer 80% of the questions in 2 or 3 minutes on the video, then hopefully that just short circuits it and helps us accelerate a little bit more. But being able to reference a customer, even if we have to make it anonymous in some of our marketing emails, is really, really helpful. So if we're doing a healthcare campaign, for example, being able to reference a hospital system with 10,000 employees in the Southwest, even if I can't use their name, is helpful. And then ultimately, we can, on more private conversations, use their some of their materials. But this is all the lists that you're talking about. It's it's LinkedIn, it's events. There's a lot of events in sort of the HR space. So if we can get people on panels talking about us, I think that's super helpful. Podcasts are becoming more and more important things like this, and in the HR world. And then we've also had some success related to basically thanking people for in recognition of their time, not trying to bribe them, but we know you're busy, right? So here's depending on the asks, here's a $25 gift card, or even $50 from Amazon, or we've done $5 Starbucks coffee cards that a lot of people responded to. So it varies.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Eric, you want to talk a little bit about the reference reel work we've been doing? I mean, that's directly to Greg's issue, and it's worked out pretty well for us and a number of our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So Greg, just, dovetailing off of what you said, we had the same challenge. Like, will you, advocate on our behalf to a prospective client? Huge pain in the butt, right? Got to give them the information. They have to hook up together. They have to have the conversation. They have to have 3 of them for some reason. 3 is the magic number, right? So that was bogging down our sales process. After we gave the final recommendations and they said, yeah, we're interested in working with you, we would provide them with the references, and then 2 weeks would go by before we could actually start to negotiate the agreement. So Mike and I said, that ain't working. So all we did is took some of those video references and we stitched them together into a nice 3-minute reference reel. So when someone says now, Actually, they don't even say it, because proactively after the meeting, we just say here, the subject line of the email is clients like you. And all we do is say, hey, great conversation. We're looking forward to next steps. By the way, here's a whole bunch of stories of clients like you might enjoy. Greg literally took away the call for references. Now, well, do I still get them? Yeah, twice, 3 times a year. But that one proactive approach to advocacy, once again, putting out there proactively, here are the people that are talking about us. Now, I will say I had one recently, maybe it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and his goal was not to confirm that we're the company to hire. He wanted the learnings from existing clients and what he could do better to be a good client. So that gave me the idea, which of course is on my very long to-do list, of creating another reference reel about secrets about working with Square 2, which would have eliminated that problem for the people that are interested in that. So, a little bit of technology, a little bit of forethought, a little bit of automation by creating a template in HubSpot and putting that out exactly at the right moment of the sales process really helped us have clients, have advocacy on our behalf without annoying them that they have to schedule a 30-minute call.
So did you generally did you split those testimonials up into like 3 separate video links or what did you?
No,
did you
it's
say
one.
stitch them to?
Yeah, it's one video with about 12 clients each with like a little 15-second snippet about what it's like to work with Square 2.
Really? Okay.
Yep. Easter egg alert, email me at eric@square2marketing.com and I'll send you a link to that reference reel so that you can make one of your own.
I'd love to. Yeah. That's a great idea.
Awesome. Thanks.
Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, I wanted to make sure, Greg already mentioned it, like around incentives. And we did have a couple of questions about, how do you get customers to do online reviews without being annoying? And then how to use incentives to promote these or surprise them after they do it. So I thought it would be interesting to talk a little bit about this balancing act between not feeling like you're paying people to do these reviews for you, but to Greg's point, incenting them for their time. Like they're taking a couple minutes out of their day. We are not their priority. Obviously, none of us are from a review perspective, but they're valuable to us. And I thought Greg's a couple of suggestions were really good. We've tried a number of things. First of all, we do ask them to do reviews. We do provide them basically like a templated email that basically says, click here, then do this, then do that. So that it's foolproof and they don't have to figure it out. Some of these review sites, while attempting to be easy, you might have to log in. You might have to create an account. Like nothing annoys me more than when someone asks me to review a business and I have to create an account, but some of them do force you to do that. I just want the client to be aware of it, and I don't want to walk them through it so that they're not annoyed or taken aback. So, all the details there. In some cases, we even write them like a sample, right? Like, and again, like I'm not trying to tell them what to say, but some people, when looking at a blank box, like they freeze up. They don't know exactly what to write. So we try to give them a little bit of a, it's like pushing the snowball down the hill. Like, and I say to them, look, you don't have to write this, but this is an idea of what some other people have written about us. So, hopefully gets that creative process started. And honestly, sometimes they're like, oh, great, I'd be happy to do it. And then they don't do it. And we have to remind them, and we have to remind them, we have to remind them. And, now you're annoying, right? You don't want to be annoying. I mean, they said they would do it. They said they were happy. They gave us a 10 out of 10. So I'm assuming that they're being honest with us on the feedback. But when it comes to clicking the button and visiting the site and actually doing a review, they just keep getting distracted and they don't do it. You eventually you have to just leave them alone because again, these are your customers. You don't want to bother them. But we've done Amazon gift cards for some people. We even, in our case, we give them a couple. I mean, a lot of our clients buy points for services. So, I've been open to giving them some points. If you do a review, we'll give you 5 points so they can get a little extra service from us in the next month. All good incentives to try to promote them. Some companies have policies about taking gifts for any reason, over a certain value or even at all, which is why I think the service, the extra services helps them work around that particular issue too. But my advice to people who are trying to use incentives is to just try a couple of different things and see what clicks, and then lean into what does click. And you may need a couple of go-to moves to kind of push them over the edge. I don't know if Greg or Eric have anything you want to add to that, but
I have one thing, and in my preparation for today's show, Greg, I don't want to be an alarmist, but there's a sketchy looking dude behind you. Be careful.
I just saw that too.
My notes, I was thinking about good advocacy stories. And Mike, remember our old friend, Scott Messer? He's a sales consultant. And I remember when we hired him, he said one thing: I want to make it very clear before you hire me, I work by referrals. And my assumption is that when I do an excellent job for you, you will refer me. And I thought that was really cool how he set the table even before we became a client, that the expectation was that I'm supposed to think about and provide him with referrals as part of our relationship. So just a little nugget there I wanted to add in, because Mike, to your point, getting them, oh yeah, remember in the sales process, I agreed that I would give references as if Square 2 did a good job. That's really something I should try to bring back a little bit in a very polite and thoughtful way.
Yeah.
But the setting the table for that as well is important. I also wanted to talk about, because you're talking about incentives, is a little bit of software that actually goes up against this too. My good friend Mitch Rose is the CMO over at Bill Trust, and they are all in on advocacy, which I find interesting because their clients are CFOs and controllers, not the most generally, flamboyant and, social folks. They're numbers folks, right? But they use Influitive, which is a software that basically puts a backbone to the advocacy program, giving points for positive activities. Sit in on a webinar, get 5 points. Be a reference for a client, get 10 points. Come to our user group meeting in New Orleans, get 50 points. And what's interesting, how Mitch shares it, is that his clients are actually quite competitive because there's a leaderboard who has the most points. And the clients actually compete who could be the best client because it's on the leaderboard. So I always thought that was a very interesting way to approach it, and the gamification of advocacy, which of course everybody enjoys.
Yeah, we actually had a question from Arthur in Miami about gamification, and I actually participated for a short time in HubSpot's Influitive based gamification around their own advocacy program. And it was exactly like you're describing. You earn points for different things, and there was a leaderboard. And I do think people generally want to perform publicly like that. It was interesting because it was starting to become a bit arduous for me. It was a lot of work to maintain my status, so much so that eventually I was like, I just got other things I got to do. So, we were talking a second ago about where is the line between, like asking your customers to do too much versus asking them to do too little, and how do you balance that? Yeah, I mean, Greg, I do think, and again, for us, we just don't have enough customers to gamify advocacy, but I would think you might, right? Depending on how many you have the people who are using it, and you have the companies that are using it. It seems like it might be an opportunity to consider gamifying it a little bit. What do you think?
That's super relevant that we're kind of talking about this right now, because we're at a point now where we're sort of gaining critical mass, both with customers and employees on platform, which is, over 150,000 now. Yes, these things I think could make a lot of sense. And it's interesting to hear about your experiences with Influitive. And so we'll definitely take a look at that. I think a point system could be something super interesting for us to enhance employee engagement. The more transactions that they make, the more things that they do, the more credits that they get, that they could then use in certain ways on a marketplace or what have you. Or and then in terms of gamification, Eric, with your CFO example, that's kind of interesting. It's like, how competitive are these folks with other companies?
Even my friend Mitch was very surprised how engaged they were with that gamification.
Interesting. Yeah. Super interesting. I've heard a couple times now, and this is something that we've batted around, but now we've finally got some bandwidth to actually instrument this around this, basically preceding advocacy at the appropriate time, either at the very end of the sales process or what we would call the kickoff, the launch of the customer, the implementation, the engagement, and just basically set that expectation. It's like, hey, we expect that we're going to do a killer job for you. If you agree, we're going to reach out in whatever it is, 30, 60, 90 days to check in and ensure that we're on the trajectory and engagement that we had set out as goals, and then ask you for, respectfully ask you for your support, right, in whatever forums that may be, and ideally it's some of these media that we talked about today, like video, because that is just so helpful in repurposing in a number of different places. But it does have to live in the appropriate third-party sort of space too. That's just not that is seen as more unbiased than just one of our channels, for example.
I think that's really critical. And to Eric's point, I mean, we try to set the table a number of times, right? Like we do ask our client in at least in the second sales call, and then when we start the engagement, like, hey, one of our core values is we want you to be a raving fan, right? That means you're an advocate of Square Two, a public advocate of Square Two. What do we have to do to make you an advocate of our business, right? Let's agree today that these are the kinds of goals and objectives that we need to achieve with you. And if we do, you're agreeing, look, we agree we'll do the work to get you to the 1,000 leads a quarter you're expecting us to get you. And in exchange for that, you'll agree to, when we do send you the video, you're happy to make the video. When we do ask you to write the review, you're happy to write the review. When we do ask you to talk to a prospective client, you're happy to do that. And they basically, my hope would be they would agree, right? If you're going to do X, Y, and Z for me, I'm going to agree to do A, B, and C for you. Seems like a fair deal.
It does. And even if you get some percentage of those folks engaged, it's more than you had before when you weren't being proactive.
Better than zero.
It's true.
Exactly.
All right. I got a question from Mark in Austin, Texas. He's asking about executive participation. And Greg, I don't know what you guys do over there as executives, but he said he was once at a company where executives owned certain clients and did regular check-ins with them. Have you seen any of this in your professional travels? Or do you guys do anything like that at PTO Exchange? I've seen some of this before. Usually it's with like your biggest clients end up with some kind of executive champion that's kind of aligned with the account team. What do you think about doing something like that for advocacy?
I think it's a great idea, and we have been doing it. We've been doing it, as a smaller company, it's a little bit easier to do because everything is related to customers, throughout the whole leadership team of the company. We're growing now to a point where that's probably, we're going to have to put a little bit more process in place and structure. But anytime that I've worked with Rob Whalen, our CEO, on sort of high level touchbacks, again, personalized email from him to both customers and opportunities that maybe didn't come to fruition yet, but we've been working on them for 6 months or a year, and things kind of go in their own little cadence. But almost without exception, anytime we've done that sort of I guess sort of a deliberate outreach, the response rate is high. 50, 60, 70% of people they're responding. Oh, thank you for checking in, and this and that. And so that is super helpful. So I guess I'm Mark Bidon is a very enthusiastic advocate of sort of executive ownership of certain clients.
People want to feel special, right? They want to be treated in a special way. So those kind of that kind of outreach goes a long way for making them feel like they're being treated in a unique and extraordinary way, I'm sure. I got a question here from Beth in Seattle. They're considering a client advocacy board, or I'm sorry, client advisory board is what she wrote here. Do you have any experience with this? And if so, what was the experience and how? It's a little different than executive sponsorship. So like it requires probably a little more thought and work, but I think, an advisory board might have a place in an advocacy program as well. What do you guys think about that?
Well, what could be bad? I mean, the only challenge about the advisory board is that it's another task in order to manage. You remember way back when, Mike, we put together our own advisory board. God, it must have been 12 years ago, maybe more. And it was great because they gave us honest feedback. We met once a quarter. I remember we compensated for them the time. We had some sandwiches and iced teas. It was very, very pleasant. But every time, if you remember, it came around like, well, we have to organize this. We have to get a conference room, blah, blah. And it just fell apart after a while just because of that effort. So there's nothing wrong with it. The insights that we got were really valuable, but I'm not sure that the effort equaled the investment. The investment equaled the return that we were looking for. And, I think that, remember also, we're a small company. And like you said, 30, 40 clients at a time. Take Greg's scenario where he literally has hundreds upon hundreds of people. Maybe it's, instead of an advisory board that is consistent, little advisory focus groups, right? Hey, come in one time and give us your experience, and then capturing the data so that it could be like an ongoing system as opposed to us, which each time it was a personalized meeting. I think it depends on the company. And I also think that you could combine them. So Greg, you mentioned earlier, like events. So if I'm having my annual event for, the PTO Exchange software users group, maybe part of that is, hey, 4:00 before the big happy hour, join us in Salon A for a little bit of an advisory board huddle. Now, at least it's like two birds with one stone, and it's not like a whole to-do.
I might recommend the post happy hour advisory board huddle because you'll probably get better reviews and good feedback.
Or honest feedback.
Love you guys.
I love you guys.
You got that captured.
I think
this is. I'm sorry, this
Greg. Greg, I'm sorry. I just wanted to put in one extra thing that I remember that Mitch was telling me about. It's the pre-attack. And what I meant by that was what Mitch does at his company is when he's got a hot prospect, he asks an existing client to send an email on Billtrust's behalf in the sales process. So they get this cold email. The subject line, I'm sure, says, I'm a client like you. Hey, I heard you were thinking about hiring Billtrust. Don't even think about it. They've been incredibly impactful to our business. If you want to talk about it, let me know. And those proactive emails are, one, remarkable, but two, kind of go on the offensive so that even if they think about they're asking for it, it's like, look, people are emailing me out of the woodwork here telling me that these guys are great. Another great touch point in the sales process. Sorry, Greg, I wanted to make sure I got that nugget in.
That's a great idea. So is that something that I think you just have to manage your advocate and take a temperature of what they can take on in terms of the ask.
That's right. If you have 200 people in your pipeline, they can't be sending 200 emails.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe it's a couple of things every month or whatever that cadence is. But that is a fantastic idea. I was just going to kind of come back to sort of my experience on the client advisory board or the customer advisory board. I think in concept, these things are fantastic, as you said, Eric, and it's really hard to kind of come up with things that wouldn't be positive about them. But the whole point is, I think the devil's in the details. How do you structure these things? What's the cadence, the frequency of meeting? Is it physical? Is it Zoom? What are the expectations? Is it rotating? Is it not? And that sort of thing. And it could be any place along a spectrum of those types of dimensions. But this just notion of unvarnished first-hand feedback and suggestions from customers, as opposed to coming through salespeople or this or that, is invaluable, I think. So even if it's, you guys were getting overwhelmed on once a quarter, even if it's once a year or twice a year, maybe that's more manageable for, again, your business and what you're in. And I think that's something even small companies like us, we're looking at that as well, because I think that helps us set priorities of, okay, what's the next on the product roadmap, and what else do we need to make our customers more successful.
Yeah, to reflect back to you, Greg, better than zero if you do it once a year, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We have a tendency to bite off more than we could chew. We probably should have had an annual advisory meeting. I think we started with quarterly, and it was just too much, too frequently, and everybody kind of lost steam. After, I think we probably had maybe a year's worth of them, but it was just not sustainable at that pace. So we probably should have done something a lot less frequently. I got a question here from, let me just scoot over. This is from Sarah in San Diego. And this is interesting. We didn't really talk much about this. What about surveys, net promoter score? I think, Greg, you mentioned you guys are doing net promoter score, but there's customer sat score and other quantitative survey methods. What do you think about that and surveys in general and these different methodologies. I guess you guys are using NPS.
We are using MPS, yeah, and we find that it's more relevant when we get it from the employee perspective, from the actual users of the benefit of the software. So we just rolled that out, so we're getting our first results in, but they are very encouraging, and I think that's kind of the way we're going to continue to go, and we're going to try to set that expectation again, sort of in that initial customer launch, on saying, and here's what we're going to do to with your employee base to check to see how we're doing.
What frequency are you thinking in terms of touching the employees?
Well, our thought is after we launch, 90 days after that, so they've had some time to get internal communications from their HR department and in other places, and then after that, I think, Mike, we're probably going to look at it 6 months later, and then again every 6 months. So we kind of want to measure that progress, and for us in particular, because it's a new thing and a new category, what I'm really interested in is seeing how awareness within the organization rises, because it's easy to sort of get an email once from HR, and then we're so busy that we just forget it, and we many employees don't always know the full extent of all their benefits that are available to them. It's sort of set it and forget it. So we want to make sure that we understand what the awareness is, that people really understand that they have this benefit within the organization.
Yeah, that makes sense. It really does. You can't survey people too frequently, then they start ignoring the surveys. We learned that also. Yeah. Cool. I got one more question here and then I'll wrap up. And we did kind of talk about this a little bit, but this is a slightly different question from Walt in New York City. How many online review sites should we be working on building? I mean, he says there must be a limit. And I think that's a good question. I mean, especially on the software space, like you guys have a lot of different review sites. How are you thinking about that? How do you go about deciding which ones to really lean into?
Well, for PTO Exchange, it was G2, Crowd, and Capterra, because those are the two leaders in our understanding on the on HR software and purchase software in general. I mentioned we have a presence there, and we got some advocacy there, but because we're such a new category, we just weren't getting a lot of traction. But I think it depends on your category and your industry. I think anywhere from 2 to 5 seems reasonable. I know in things like marketing services and professional services, there's probably maybe half a dozen of relevant online review sites. But I think it depends on your industry. And I've received asks myself from vendors that I've hired to go and do 5 reviews on 5 different sites. And
that's a lot.
Yeah,
it is. And this was an incentive with a nice little thank you card but it worked. I said, okay, I'll take 15, 20 minutes of my time.
You're a good guy, Greg. I don't know if that would work too many times. I mean, our approach is actually, this is an interesting little data point here. Our approach is slightly different. So the way I structured it was 3 different levels of effort, right? So the easiest thing you could do for us is to write us a Google review, because you basically search Square 2, it pops up right there. You write a review, you're done, right? So that's like the least amount of effort to do a Google review for us. Then the HubSpot directory is a big source of references for us. That's the second at least amount of effort to go in there. So it takes a little bit of effort. You have to be logged into HubSpot. You have to kind of follow the directory prompts that they have for you. And then the last one is G2. Now, G2 is a verified reference. So they actually interview our clients. So that's the most amount of work. So, we kind of start with the easiest and give them some options. And obviously, if they're willing to do G2 and be interviewed and, give us that verified review there, then we do a little bit more for them. But I'll take anything, honestly, because they're all important in varying degrees. And for the most part, they tend to do the HubSpot review because it's the middle of the road. It's not the hardest, it's not the easiest, and it generally still only takes a couple of minutes. But Yeah, you got to pick and choose. You can't do everything. You're a saint for doing the 5. Because I don't think I would have done that if someone asked me to do 5 reviews in 5 different sites. But yeah, good for you. Cool. Let me wrap up. Eric, anything you want to add before I sign off?
No,
And say
really
thanks,
great
Greg?
conversation today with some $1 million ideas.
Greg, anything you want to add before we close out?
I think just it's just worth reinforcing and reiterating that I think advocacy is going to only increase in importance, and as we move forward in sort of the marketing world, not become sort of this thing that goes away. Like, sort of, people want authenticity, they want unbiased and unvarnished information, and and what better way to get it than from someone who's worked with you directly.
They sure do. And when we talk about it internally, I'm constantly referring to our team, like, these reviews, they're currency. They mean things to us from a business perspective. The HubSpot partner directory is ranked based on how many reviews you have. So the more we can activate our clients and get them to publicly talk about their experience with us, the better the agency does. So there's a lot of value in these reviews, and they can't be ignored, and they can't be just left to haphazardly rolling in whenever whenever someone feels like it. You have to create programs like we've talked about today. You have to create systems and processes behind it. It's the only way you're going to, proactively drive these in the direction that you need them to go. And they're important, as we've talked about all afternoon. Good. Listen, Greg, I really appreciate you joining us. I hope this wasn't too much of your time. I know you're a busy guy. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Eric, thank you. I'll just remind everybody, if you want to get access to the show and you want a little bit more proactive reminders, you can go to square2marketing.com. At the bottom, there's a link, What's Wrong with Revenue. Click on it and you can subscribe to the show, and we will email you updates on what's coming. We'll send you the show on demand after the show is over. The next day, you get an email right delivered to your inbox with the show, and you can check it out. Also, the Square 2 Plus page has all of the What's New with Revenue, What's Wrong with Revenue shows, and all of our other audio and video content. Check that out on the Square 2 Marketing website as well. It's also at the bottom in the footer. And go check out the show on YouTube. All the shows are at the Square 2 Marketing channel. All the shows are on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you guys very much. Greg, thank you again. Everybody, have a really great day. And we will see you next Wednesday, same bat time, same bat channel. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.